What can we learn from a 100-year-old tile installation company? Would examining their business model be considered a worthy time for you and your contractor business? Hello, tile friends, and welcome back to another one of the Tile Money live podcast interviews. This podcast, Tile Money, is strengthening the tile industry. We are doing this with our unique business education from tile contractors for tile contractors. This education is assisting the whole industry, every contractor worldwide, in fact. Today I'm wearing a shirt from Ontario, Canada, from D. Lusso. Thank you so much for this beautiful shirt. I'm wearing a hat from Donald from New Jersey. Thank you so much for this hat. We're assisting tile contractors like Donald and D. Lusso to build profitable, sustainable businesses, the type of businesses that are good for the industry, the type of businesses that are good for the tile contractors' bottom line and the communities they live and work in. Today we have a great interview. We have no other than Chris Walker in the studio today. Let's hear it, guys. Put in your comments. Let's make today's show an epic show. Ask questions, comment, follow us along. Help us create this podcast live. How cool is that? Chris is the Vice President for the Northeast region for operations for the David Allen Company. The David Allen Company is one of the oldest tile installation companies in North America. Now, Chris has 31 years experience as a professional manager, as well as an installer and a small business owner himself inside the tile industry. So a lot of experience here. Chris is also the current president of the NTCA. He sits as a chairman for the ANSI, American Standards Institute. He's a voting member for the TCNA Handbook Committee. Those are just a few, not all, of the committees and volunteer positions he holds within the industry, tile and construction. And even though Chris says, he'll tell you that tile was an accidental profession for him back when he was attending school full-time. He got started, and he started as a part-time laborer, and he went to college full-time. He ended up, staying. Obviously, he made it his full-time career and has been in the industry ever since. But before we bring him on and start talking to him about all this good stuff, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors. Now, these are the companies who are investing back in you, the tile installer, the tile contractor. They're strengthening the industry with their dollars. They're putting their money where their mouth is, right? The NTCA, the oldest association, the oldest and largest association for tile contractors. Laticrete, the oldest inventor of thin set, manufacturer of materials, installation, grout, waterproofing. GoBoard is newer, but GoBoard is putting their money where their mouth is. They're investing in the industry. They're getting involved in the industry. HappyTileGuy.com, where you can get your tile contractor websites built. And all of you patrons, like I mentioned today, D. Lusso, Donald, you send me hats, you send me shirts, and you contribute to my Patreon account to help assist other tile contractors. So let's bring Chris on and see what he has to say today. I'm looking forward to this interview very much.
Hey, Luke.
Chris.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you. How are you today?
Great. Thanks very much for having me. And I want to start by thanking you for all you do. And you're bringing a lot of guys from the trade into the business side and giving them lots of really great, useful information. I think it's one of the most exciting things we have going on right now in the trade.
Well, I appreciate that testimony, and for you saying that, Chris, I really appreciate that. I'm excited to have you here today. We were actually scheduled to do something earlier this year at Coverings, and of course that did not happen. We were going to do a roundtable discussion and talk about the business. So I've been meaning to get back with you. Jerry's with us from Texas. Welcome to the show. Chris is here. We appreciate everybody being here, and you all can contribute to a great show by commenting. So, Chris, for those watching and listening to this in the future, give us your 10,000-foot overview of who you are and of your time in the industry.
You mentioned it a little bit. I ended up going back to school a little later. I'd been in college after high school. Then I went out to the workforce for a while, went back to college. I took a part-time job as a laborer for a tile company. that was a friend of the family, and stuck with that for a little while, and then all of a sudden realized that, I communicating with the superintendents, communicating on job sites, and started to look at plans. Then went, after college, went inside on the business side and estimated, learned how to do the office stuff, and basically what we call an office puff for many years. And then I moved away from that business and moved back to my home state of Iowa, and started a small installation company where I was essentially, bucket and trowel guy, me and a couple of guys, doing mostly residential, some small commercial work in the Midwest. And then I had that commercial experience before I went back to be on, to run my own company, and then ended up having an opportunity to come back to the East Coast, wearing a commercial hat with a friend and partner. And we had a small private installation company doing mostly commercial work, and then got some opportunities to work with some really, giants of the industry like Port Morris Tile and Marble, who's no longer an active entity, but then got introduced to the David Allen Company about 10 years ago. And really blessed to be at David Allen. They're really an industry icon, and it's been quite an opportunity.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of, jumping to an assumption that they are the oldest installation company, or is it?
Well, there's plenty of 100-year-old plus installation companies. I know of a couple in the New York market, and there's some guys peppered around the country, a couple of guys in Chicago that I can think of off the top of my head. But definitely, when you hit the 100-year mark, you pretty much have to stop explaining, that you're a well-established company. So
I think after 25 years, but yeah, definitely after 100, and that's an incredible feat. So congratulations to the originators, the visionaries, and all you hardworking men and women in the company who are continuing to do that today. I would like to ask you, back when you went on your own, you said you moved back home and you started a small company for yourself. That's really a large amount of the audience listening today and in the future. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. And I'm always curious to hear older stories about how tile was installed and ran and all that good stuff.
Well, you're making me sound old, man.
No. It's, what it is. It's just our history, and we're passionate people. And so every tile person I know who has the opportunity to talk about our history wants to talk about it. So in your view back then, how was the tile contractor installer viewed by the consumer? How were the relationships, if any, were they different back then?
Well, when you say back then, I'm gonna jump before going back to Iowa and starting the installation company to talk a little bit about the commercial work at the time when I first got in the tile industry. And, a big tile was 8x8, right? So right. At that point, the tile marketplace was 6 and 8x8 and 4x8 quarry tile and 8x8, porcelain wall tile. I remember installing tons of Marazzi 8x8 all over the country. And it just, there were specialty materials. And of course, the tile trade has been around for literally thousands of years, but it just, in the kind of commercial work we were doing, it just wasn't that interesting. Mm-hmm. Lots of 4 1/4 cord shell toilets, some nice lobby stuff, but it was very straightforward, at least the type of work that I had at the time. I remember I didn't really have a lot of installation experience at that point because I almost moved immediately into the office. But then when I went back out to the Midwest to start my own thing, I took literally a part-time job at night as a key punch operator for a retailer, while in the daytime I was out hustling, trying to get some work doing tile installations through some various local shops and distributors, and those are the folks that really helped me get started back in that marketplace. So it's been kind of an interesting ride. I've done some, like most guys, right? I really enjoy going through Facebook and watching the GTP and Tile Geeks and stuff, because I love watching guys post their work, guys and gals, pardon me, post their work, and they're so proud of these installations. And that's how we learn, right? Yeah. Most of us learn the hard way through our mistakes and our efforts, and just keep trying to plug away and move forward.
Yeah, and I agree. It is how we move the trade as a whole forward. I think of Joshua Nordstrom, who just 2 days ago in their tile artisan Facebook group with him and Lee Callywart, who started that, and Jane. He posted an entryway. I don't know if you saw this picture yet, Chris.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
it looks like a hole in the floor.
Yeah,
And
it's incredible.
and so you and I, back, we might say, well, how the heck did he do that? I would never be able to do that. But what's beautiful about Josh and Lee and all these groups, the people who are participating, is he explained step by step exactly how he did it. And it wasn't even, there's level of difficulty there, yes, and talent, yes, but it's not unthinkable that I would be able to do that if I just follow his step by step guidance.
Yeah, that level of creativity is just off the chart, right? I mean, I can't imagine even having the inclination to spend as much time as it takes him to do that, because it's truly artistry.
Yeah.
And that's one of the neat things about the trade. I mean,
Yeah.
I've said before that lots of tile guys are frustrated artists because they want to control those details, and I was reading something, a guy was talking about, it's the end of a 10-hour day, and you make that cut that's not quite right, and do you leave it, or do you take it back out and replace it and make that another trip up the stairs or whatever it is to make that installation perfect? And those are the people that probably are going to be in the industry forever and end up staying and coming to lots of different levels. So I want to drop back to a question that you asked me about how it changed, because it reminded me of a story. You and I spoke a little bit yesterday, but I remember when I was writing the president's letters for Tile Letter, I remember asking a guy who had been in the trade longer than me, and I said, well, what was the thing that really changed the trade most for you? And he said the mixing drill. And I thought that was such a simplistic answer, but I mean, I was surprised by it, but I thought, gosh, I mean, this goes back to the advent of the Laticrete and the beginning of thin sets, and how guys were mixing dry set mortar with a stick in a bucket, and how a mixing drill changed this guy's life because he was a helper,
Yeah.
It's struggling to mix thin set in a bucket.
Yeah. It is incredible. It is incredible. And we have guys here today. I mean, a comment from a Facebook user, I'm chopping mud. That means he's mixing his fat mud. And I mean, you know what it means, but I'm saying for all the Midwest guys and some of these other guys, he's mixing it with a hoe and a barrel or a mud box, right? And mud, the group mud I want to mention, and the event mud, they're focused on the traditional ways of building because there's value there. And a lot of guys have came to this event or picked up this knowledge like John Bridge and on these forums and on this, and they've taken it back to their states and they've become a specialty contractor because they've learned mud, and now their value just went up. So, and you're right about one thing. You're not that old, Chris. We're talking about, when we talk about your beginnings in the trade, we're talking about the 1990s, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so when
late 80s, 1990s.
Yeah. So it helps to put a date on this thing, because now we realize, and you explained it, the type of work you were doing. But what I'm really interested in, I'll ask you this other question about that time period, is what were your mentors who were your age now or even retiring? They were, the guys who were on their way out of the trade, maybe they were in their late 50s and early 60s. What kind of stories did they tell about their prime, their heyday?
I remember a story. This is probably not the best reference, but I remember a guy at a TCAA event, and I think I was in Chicago, and they said that they measured a successful convention by how many guys got arrested. But that was that was a little bit before my time. But going back to the beginning of my most cherished collaborations in tile have come from my opportunity to meet and greet guys at trade shows and stuff. And for example, I've been going to covering since before it was coverings. And the first time I went, I had no idea why I was going. I basically packed a bag and told my wife I was going to Florida. And she goes, "What is this thing? What's this thing? What are you talking about?" So I don't really know, but I'm going to go check it out. And I've met a whole bunch of folks there that I've known for many, many, many years. And I truly miss them because this year's been an odd year, but those are the guys that I've learned the most from. And we always, through the ANSI meetings, TCNA, and just going through the vendor presentations. I mean, I've learned so much from those meetings, in addition to just things that you learn and you can only learn on your knees. Trial and error. Didn't have to watch the video, but I figured out on my own I remember overnight one night in a bank lobby, about 600 square feet of bank lobby. It was Mosa tile on a diamond. It's those things you never forget that installation. And I remember finally just getting that flow going where everything was going right, setting the material down to the trowel and moving it in. And everything was just working the way it was supposed to. And you kind of came to that, you had that epiphany that, yeah, if I trowel it this way and I do it this way, I get the best coverage, I can move faster. And those things are guys just learn on their own as they're doing the work.
Yeah. And so, if I could make a light joke here, was that a challenge that you put out there to the mud event or any of these other homegrown events, that a successful event is calculated by how many people get arrested? No. No.
I just remember, this is an old, cigar chomping,
I know. I like
the traditional tile guy of maybe 50, 60 years ago. He's a pretty rough guy, but big heart and a lot of fun. But anyway, I shouldn't have said that. But
no. You were relaying what somebody else said, and it brings light. Look, we've got to be a little bit lighter on ourselves and a little bit more, able to laugh at ourselves and enjoy, the facts are, they are what they are. And it was something that someone said to you. So
yeah, well, he and his entire family were staples in the Chicago installation market for many, many years. So I'll leave that one. We'll let that one pass.
For sure.
Well,
go ahead. Let's jump into the time, if you don't mind, when you went out on your own and you opened up your business. I really want to talk about how difficult or easy of a time it was for you and kind of the lessons learned.
Well, you asked me the question, some of the questions were you passionate about? And I think after this time in the marketplace, it took me, and it takes so many guys, a long time to gain the confidence to actually demand to get paid for your experience and demand to get paid for your expertise. And at least for me, for so many years, that really came down to proper preparation of the substrate. I remember as a residential installer, I was out there with a sander, sanding down OSB, taking ridges and stuff off. Nobody else was doing that. Nobody was paying me to do that. But I just, when I was doing my own residential installation, I just thought that I couldn't deliver a high quality installation with all that stuff going on underneath the cement board. Mm-hmm. So I remember the particular builder that I was working for asking me why I was doing it. And then I went to explain to him that, his boards were improperly placed and they'd been left out into exposed conditions and they were cresting at the peaks. And he goes, so I was grinding them off. He goes, well, nobody's ever done that. So, well, I understand that nobody's ever done that. And hopefully it's worth the extra $1 a foot or whatever I got for it. You want to deliver a high quality product, you start to see the things that are keeping you from doing that and try to move those obstacles one by one.
It's interesting. So you went really over and above what you saw kind of the local standard at the time was. So you've always had a sincere interest in standards and quality, right?
I did. I had a conversation with that guy about 25 years after some of my initial installations, and he said, "You're the only guy I know of that didn't produce failures for me. That I've never had a callback on one of your jobs." So I felt pretty good about that, right?
That's a very good compliment. Yeah, very much so. We would all feel good for that type of compliment. That is how we value ourselves a lot of times.
Now, that's not to say that I haven't done unsuccessful installations. Trust me, there's no such thing as a perfect tile installation, and I've managed to hide plenty of warts in my time, but
I always say if you can do it 70% right, you're going to be okay. Especially with the standards we have today, and that's what I say personally. That's my viewpoint. With the standards we have today, if you can hit 70% of them, you're going to be okay. It's probably going to be a lifetime product.
So anyway, that's probably accurate, and I'm talking about the personal private residential installations that I had on my own, and these are decades ago. So
yeah. And frankly, we all just go through life and do the best we can. We were talking yesterday, and before you went on your own, like you said, you were doing some management for a larger outfit. Were there any lessons that stuck out to you regarding kind of the relationship between installer and employee?
Installer and employee?
Well, when you went out, because you were a manager, right? And then you went out on your own and started hiring people to work for you.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're relating to a story where I was a finisher to start, but then went in the office pretty quick, so I didn't really develop much installation acuity. It took me, I was never fast, but I was always concentrated on doing high quality stuff. But then I was working for a commercial company in New York City, and that was all about production. And I remember, honestly, I was always, my job was to make sure that we were getting as much production as possible, and that's a uncomfortable. Superintendents have a very difficult job, right? Because superintendent's not making anybody happy. They're not making the crew happy. They're probably not making the GC happy. And if anybody's happy with the superintendent, they're probably missing a beat. They're either giving up money to the GC or they're not getting enough production out of the guys in the field. So, but then I remember, then I took a step out on my own again, and I remember we talked about the story. It was late on a winter evening. Well, it was dark because I'm in the Midwest. It's 4:30. It's dark. I was trying to get a fireplace done before I went home. Residential installation, 3-piece fireplace, 2 legs and a header, and I cut the polished edge off of one of the legs. And I remember I was so disappointed with myself. But then I had that moment, like, you know what? I would have just been all over a guy that did this in the field. And it wasn't because I didn't care. It wasn't because, it was dark. There was one light bulb hanging in the middle of the room. I missed it. I wasn't thinking. It just happened. Yeah. And I thought to myself, gosh, this is a hard trade. We're all just trying to do the best. And I think that particular moment gave me some even greater appreciation for the guy on his knees. And I've told some other folks that have worked with us, not just here, but in my time in tile, that got kind of the attitude on about the guy on his knees installing tile. And I'd say, look, you're overhead. He's the only guy here making money. I said, so you need to pay attention to what you're delivering, your attitude. We're all here just to make his life easy, because if we're making his life easy, we're giving him the opportunity to do a great job. That's the only reason we survive. So that was kind of the paradigm that I tried to adopt for the most part going forward. And ever since then, for me, it's mostly been all about the craftsperson. So, and that's really, I guess hopefully, when I'm dead and gone, that'll be the takeaway, that I tried to do what I could in the industry with all the other stuff that I have an opportunity to do. It's really all about the craftsperson and about the trade. So,
yeah. I love that story. Thank you for sharing, that honest story. Very real. I think we could all relate to being on the job after we want to be, right? You're kind of rushing, you're kind of doing that. And then it triggered that emotion, and you were able to connect the dots. Hey, when I was a manager, maybe now next time I'm a manager, and we see that story would have impacted the rest of your career that you've had. And to this day, it stands out. And I appreciate you, sharing that to us, with us here, because we all grow, some of us choose to grow businesses with employees or might go into management positions. And it's good to remember where we're from. We have some questions from the audience that we will get to. I'm not going to get to them right now. The challenges that Chris sees in our industry. I do have that coming up here, but I want to talk about David Allen Company. We got David Rothberg watching on YouTube. Thanks for watching, David. Thanks for your support. I appreciate everything you do and done for our industry. So let's jump into the David Allen Company, if we could. 100-year-old company. So what early history do you know that you can share with us about the David Allen Company?
It's actually pretty fascinating. There was Mr. David G. Allen, started the company in 1920, was recognized as a high quality craftsman, recognized also early the value of relationships in the community and the industry. There was an association before NTCA was NTCA called the Southern Mantle. So I don't recall, but there's a picture of Mr. Allen at a table with his essentially competitors and and other gentlemen from the industry, having that association meeting, and this is where you get to share lots of very constructive comments and information with each other. He hired on a temporary basis a young man named Robert Robertson, whose intention was to be there for a short period of time before he went on to his real job. So it was just a temporary position for him.
Right.
I think she shared the story just not too long ago. I forget what he said he was making. It was $15 a week. I don't recall exactly what he said, but it was a fee appropriate for the time. But through a bunch of serendipitous situations, he ended up essentially running the company after a very short period of time, and has been involved in the industry for over 60 years, is currently our chairman. His brother, David Robertson's our CEO. These are two people who had vision beyond day-to-day operations of tile and terrazzo. Again, always very committed to the industry, always very committed to the craftsperson and our associations that help. The charter of the NTCA is all about training. Really, that's what it exists for. Same thing with the Ceramic Tile Education Foundation. That's all about training and certification. And, that's very much a part of the David Allen legacy. The customer service, craftsmanship, professionalism, and integrity. And that's what has carried the company through, because if you meet even the management today and the principal shareholders, Art and Martin, these guys walk the walk. They're gentlemen of their word. They're gentlemen of their faith. It's a very refreshing place to be, and I'm blessed to be there. And honestly, I can genuinely say that if you're going to be in business, why not be in a business that respects the craft and is interested in taking care of their employees? It's a pretty refreshing perspective compared to lots of businesses today that are just looking to burn up their people, and that's just not the profile that David Allen has, either in the industry or with their employees. So.
Thank you for sharing that history. It's a great conversation. It's, I share the same values, and it might seem like we're having a conversation here that is interesting and valuable, but I really want to encourage the audience to dig deep there. Go rewind those last 2 minutes and listen to that again, because you're gonna hear insights. There was multiple insights into what makes a company, the type of company that sets up a company for success, the type of values that the leaders are going to share and express.
I do want to back up, because there's one name I forgot, and he was also critically important to the success of the David Allen Company. That was Mr. Don Scott. He was in fact my introduction to the company. I'm going to share a quick story about him as well. Is that there was a problem with an installation, and Don heard about it. They got called back. It was a few years later, and it was just one of those things where Don said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." And why? Because it was the right thing to do. And it's that kind of integrity that's been part of the company for essentially its entire existence. So didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Appreciate that. And what would you say their vision was when they were starting this company? Because not all of them, from what I understand, were necessarily, not all the leaders necessarily came from the installation side of things, but what was their vision,
Well, yeah, it's interesting. And I think it's true. And I don't know if it's true for every successful company, but I think Mr. Robertson's background essentially was finance and accounting. And our current president is a certified public accountant as well. He's a financial guy. He's a numbers guy. And I think that that's real important, because you see it every day, right? You see lots of really skilled craftspeople who just aren't business savvy. They don't know, they either don't know how to make money or save money or keep money or invest their money. And part of the strength and financial stability of David Allen Company rests on the fact that they were very, very present relative to how do we successfully run a business, not just how do we get the material installed. And it's also about, trying to maintain that high level of craftsmanship that keep people coming back. I keep saying that, you're only as good as your last 5 minutes on a job. Every job gets tough at some point, but it's always about trying to finish strong and walking away and holding your head high with what you've done. It doesn't happen every time. There's always issues, but it's really about how you go back and address those issues. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, what I really like, and what you did answer, is the fact that, yeah, these guys, you know, their focus, perhaps part of the success, and like you said, this is part of it. It's not all of it, but part of the success of the company is they are focused on the financials. They are focused on the business, and we're gonna bring this back around here in a minute to how that impacts the installer. But they're gonna focus on the business and building it to be profitable and very successful. And we'll get to how that actually impacts the installer who wants a career. What kind of projects does the company work on today?
Yes, well, we do it all.
All tile.
Yeah, we do it all. There are branches. The mothership is in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a fabulous facility. It's essentially a lifetime worth of Mr. Robertson's collections, and an opportunity for a tile and marble and dimensional stone company to showcase those crafts, because the office in Raleigh is essentially a showplace. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of pretty high profile, very complicated work. I would say that would be our forte, because we're such a large company with lots of infrastructure. It's real hard for us to compete with the lick 'em and stick 'em guys, because there's always going to be that lick 'em and stick 'em guy. And we just can't be in that marketplace. I mean, I know that generally speaking, our price isn't going to be low, and it's not because we're just trying to take a whole bunch of extra dough on the job. It's because we have a full-time safety director. It's because we invest in high quality equipment and safety and all those things. I mean, as an example, we're a platinum step participant. So if at least for the open shop companies, for ABC, your commitment to safety. I mean, all of those things are part of the company culture. All of them require a lot of investment. But those are the kinds of jobs that give people confidence to put us on a really complicated, larger project that we're gonna finish that job no matter what.
And so the question is, and it came about here from the audience, Shannon Huffstickler, are your clients finding you because of those values that you do bring, or are you having to sell those values and say, well, look, this is why we're the more expensive guy?
Well, you sell those values, and hopefully you have to do it only once, right? Because if you sell those values and you don't deliver, why would somebody want you back, right? So that's the razor's edge conversation all the time. But kind of people, I mean, at least in our branch here, I mean, the answer is going to be, why are we having this conversation? Because we're going to do the right thing. So let's just get there sooner. Because that just makes everybody's life a lot easier. Never make an excuse for crappy work. Let's just go fix it and make it right. So, especially because that's the value that we're selling people, and if we don't deliver on that, then they're false promises, and nobody wants to deal with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the simple, and it sounds simple, but I know it's harder to execute on it. But it is a pretty basic, thing. Like there's a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it's a very large book. I don't know if you've seen this book. It's been around a long time, and it boils down to this: be a good human, and do a few certain things. But it's essentially pretty much do what you say you're going to do, like you mentioned. And
we as a company, we have company forums on the first Friday of every month. All the various branches get together via a webinar, and there's a young woman, Kay Barrett, who's our counselor, and she goes through these various things, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But I wanted to talk specifically about Speed of Trust, which was a follow-up to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and there were the 13 core words, and within those are transparency, courtesy, and it all boils down to, think about a relationship you have with somebody that you trust and how productive that is, versus someone that you don't trust. I mean, when you're dealing with somebody that you can't trust, all of your conversations are guarded. You have to worry about what you're delivering, and you're not taking anything for granted from that other person. It just makes it a very difficult relationship. So we try to be transparent with our clients. We try to be transparent with each other. We invest a lot here on doing the DISC profile, which is just, indications of how to best deal with each other, a little bit on the lines of emotional intelligence, and just, knowing how to work with people and what tweaks people the right way and the wrong way, and trying to avoid those triggers. And that just makes for a good work environment. It makes for a group, at least in our branch, which is relatively small here. Hopefully people that are all here for the right reason, that want to do the right thing, for lots of different reasons, because, we have a high level of trust with each other, and we're all trying to pull the boat in one direction.
Thank you for sharing those insights into your business and the way it operates and the way it strengthens the essential, component, the employee, right? The heart and soul of the business. And I know a lot of tile contractors, small contractors, are out there saying, well, that's great that they can do that, but how do I implement that in my business? What Chris just said was essentially a book club. He's going to books, and he might, and he's saying, this is the book we're reading this month, or whatever. You can do this with A, yourself, and B, your employees. You can set up a bonus structure on this if you so desire, to incentivize employees. And by doing this and by implementing some of these things, you're going to not only build up your employee and improve their life, which in turn will strengthen your bottom line, but you're also going to attract employees who desire something more. They desire a company has a culture and has these things in place. One of the things I learned researching the David Allen Company in preparation was that you are an employee shared ownership company. Can you tell us about the reasoning behind that? It's always been an attractive business model, in my opinion, and I'd love for you to share us any insights into that.
Yeah, I think that just supports some of the things that, we've been talking about, and the leadership in the company. Mr. Robertson and Don Scott and some of the other principals really were evaluating, how do we make sure that we're here for the next 100 years? And one of the ways to do that is to find ways to engage and keep high quality people. And part of that is to essentially adopt the employee stock ownership program. So that means basically everybody that's here, we want you to think like an owner, because you know what, you are.
Yeah.
So of course there's a vesting period, but we try to reinforce the mentality of, what would you do if it was your company? Would you make that decision if that money was coming out of your pocket? Would you leave that cut there? If it wasn't, this is your company and you need to represent it that way. So it's also about creating an environment where we're hopefully creating careers for people here, not just jobs. Because of course, when you're young, you'll leave for a quarter an hour. But as you start to mature a little bit, and you start to really put into perspective what we're delivering. 100% healthcare payment, because David Allen Company for many years has always paid 100% of their employees' health care.
That's great.
The 401k contributions and the ESOP, all these things are specifically engineered to offer people a place where you have a career. And it does very much what companies used to try to accomplish. Those stories with, my dad worked for one company all of his life. Well, now it's like, by the time you're 35, it's likely, statistically, you're going to have 8 jobs. So in our trade has, and this goes back to tile now, has almost come full circle from those really simplistic 4 1/4 8x8 jobs. Now it's very much sophisticated, high technically, very technical installations, porcelain panels, large module tile. I mean, goodness, the setting materials are so sophisticated compared to just cement and Portland, right, or Portland and sand.
Right.
I mean, these things can do incredible. These mortars can do incredible things. So that's another reason that we've been pushing towards finding our direct crews and keeping our guys here working for us, so that we can always train and take advantage of that training and keep these people here, at every level, because the guy sweeping the broom to the guy driving, we're all owners. Mm-hmm. And we want all those people to feel invested in that culture, and to be part of the success. It's also, by the way, though, as owners, you tend to be careful. You tend to be a little more aggressive about voting people off the island. So
Right.
we want to keep ourselves operating at a higher and higher level all the time.
Yeah, and as you should. I mean, the more you have to offer, and here's what I really want to express and kind of emphasize on what Chris just said. The more you can offer an employee, the better quality person you can attract. And it goes beyond that, though, because, and again, I'll say, for those of you who are smaller contractors who just heard what Chris said, that they offer a 401k package, they offer 100% employer paid insurance, health insurance, you said?
Yeah.
They offer 100% paid insurance for their employees. They offer all these things, ESOP. That's great, Chris, but here I am. I've got 3 employees. That's not realistic for me. Well, guess what? Everything he mentions not realistic for you today. It's not like a light switch. You're not going to turn that on. That's not going to happen. But you can offer, let's say, 4 paid holidays, 3 paid sick days, and then 5 paid vacation days, and you're up to 2 weeks paid vacation days. You don't think, and if you don't think you can afford that, you can. It's 2020, and you've all been raising your prices because I've been telling you to, and you've all been profitable, and you can afford to pay an extra 2 weeks. And if you can't, then you need to raise your prices, because it's your job as a business owner, as an employee, to treat your employees correct and offer something. And that, and I preach profit for business owners, and I mainly talk to business owners, but we have employees listening to the show. And one of the main reasons I want you to be profitable and sustainable and be able to be around the long haul is to offer good paying careers to people who want them, because that is lacking in this industry. We have too many, like myself, when I was 25 and I got my C-54 license in California, I many days I would come home to my wife and just practically cry and say, I just wish I could find a job, because I'm done. Like, I don't want to run a business and install and do all this. I just wish somebody could pay me like $25 an hour. And when I was 25, I already had 9 years of installation experience in the field. So, and I couldn't make $25 an hour in Monterey, California, on the coast of California, in one of the most expensive pockets in the world. And so it's a problem in our industry. And so that's why this conversation, and that's why your example, David Allen Company, primarily, and Chris, for relaying this information, is so important today, because we need to create careers for the industry.
But to your point, Luke, remember, it's a process. We're talking about a company that's a century old.
Yeah.
None of those things started right away. And I remember, if I made a quote unquote mistake when I was out on my own, my mistake was I wanted to do it alone. And I remember, like you just said, you're out all day, your day starts getting out to the field, and then you get guys started and you run to Home Depot, or for me, it was Menards, and then, you're running to the job, you're trying to get some installations done. You're going to meet with the home builder at 2:00, and then Mrs. O'Leary's homeowner at 5:30 at the distributor, and then you're going to go home. Now you're going to try to do some estimating. You're going to try to send out some bills. It never stops.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But the only point that I'm trying to make is that it's super hard to do that alone.
Right.
You can choose to do that, and you'll be limited by how much time you have to spend doing that. I think if I were going to do this again, maybe learning a little bit of the example of David Allen and some of the other folks that I've had the opportunity to work with, it's really hard to do it alone. You really do need to rely on folks, and if they're good folks, they're going to expect to get paid, because they deserve to be paid. Yeah. So I just remember just trying to keep a helper, one person.
Yeah.
And and
it's
some
difficult.
of them are great and some of them weren't. But at the end of the day, when I went into pocket a little more and started to pay guys more, I'm just talking about when I was out on my own, I got better quality guys.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have to worry about those guys doing something different than what they were supposed to do when I went to pick up material. Yeah. Because that I was that running around guy doing all that stuff at the same time. So it's hard to do it alone, and it's even better if you could have a small group of people you could trust, and it comes in steps. Nobody starts out running full speed. So
yeah, And don't beat your, yeah, exactly. Thank you for adding to that. And don't be beating yourself up. When all these things I say, don't feel bad if you're in that early stages or the middle of the process. Just have that vision and understand where you do want to go. And that's different for everybody, but it should be up, right? It should be up, not down. Let's talk a little bit about why you're so involved in the industry, what that's done for you, how others can start to get involved.
It's interesting. I talked about going the first time to coverings and telling my wife I was going to this tile show, not knowing what to expect.
Right.
And I went to, I forget what they called it at the time, ITSE, something along those lines. But I, as an installer, was beginning to really see the value of the difference in quality of products, the installation stuff. And then I remember that was my first chance to actually, other than going to some distributors' product knowledge seminars, first time I was able to see real demonstrations and that kind of thing. And I just realized that there was a whole bunch to learn. And really, most importantly, I figured out I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And so that kept me coming back. I got just involved on the technical side, mostly because as a small commercial contractor, when I had a failure or a problem, because I didn't know any better,
Mm-hmm.
it was super costly, right? Because this was money that was this was what I call bread money. You know, replacement was coming out of the bread money, so I couldn't afford to do installations that would fail. So I needed to find out how to up my game. And for me, paying attention to the technical side of it just became a bit of a passion, and that translated into me listening to the folks that were talking about those types of things. And give some credit to Mike Maori 100 years ago, and kind of let me tag along on the first TCNA meeting. I remember going to South Carolina and just sat and listened with Lucinda Noel and Mike Maori, and pretty fascinating stuff, right? I was pleased to be there, but what I didn't realize at the time was that I was learning what I call method speak, because it's a separate language. For most people who walk in that room for the first time, it's like watching paint dry. It's just not very interesting.
Right.
But the longer that you participate and you begin to understand some of the complexities and the history of some of the conversations, it becomes more interesting. And if there's anything that, I'll say, and Don Scott was also kind of a mentor to me in that regard, in that, things happen at a snail's pace in those methods meetings, because, you're looking for 100% agreement for some of the changes. And I think, anyway, I'm getting to the point of, I've been very involved in the technical side, the ANSI side, TCNA, mostly by invitation, by people who were I was fortunate to allow me to tag along. And now I've been involved just through force of sheer will, because, if you know me well enough, you know that you probably are not going to have to wait for my opinion, right or wrong. But sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. But I think we've been able to very much advocate for the tile consumer by way of kind of leveling the playing field for the labor side of the standard. And the difference and changes that we make are subtle, but I think they've got real value in terms of sharing some of the liability and the responsibility. If I said, I like to sometimes use the analogy of there's three buckets: the manufacturer, the installer, and the allied product, and the tile manufacturer, the allied product manufacturer, and the tile installer. Well, we should all have some similar liability spread around in those buckets. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't all come down to the tile installer. And very frequently, it is the responsibility of the tile installer, but sometimes there was language that skewed that a little bit. And I think we've had an opportunity to make a difference with that over the last 15 years, at least that I've been involved with that stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. What could you tell someone who's maybe a little bit younger in the industry, or maybe they're just hearing of the NTCA and they kind of want to get involved, but they're not 100% sure what impact it'll have on them and their business, and then what impact will it have on the industry?
Well, like I said before, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And being with and hanging around and paying attention with a lot of people who have, obviously you have a similar interest, right? If you're a tile contractor, you're going to be speaking with your peers. There's just so much to learn in this business, and even especially today, so many new products, so much new technology. You're just not going to be able to absorb it all on your own by reading or in the field by reading the back of the bag. You just need to have the amount of input that you can get through an association like the National Tile Contractors Association, who is constantly there providing training, constantly there providing access to information. NTCA University, just going through those modules alone. I learned things going through those modules, and little tweaks and information. There's just no end to what you need to know, and I think that the association is a great place to do that. Now, lots of folks don't want to be in an association, or they're just not that joining mentality thing. They don't care. They say, well, I'm getting along fine without it. And that might be very true. Everybody's got a niche or things that they like to do, and you can stick with that. Nobody says you have to join the association, but I can guarantee you, and at least from everyone that I know in my peer group associated with the NTCA, will tell you that they walk away from a conversation every time learning something. I always learn something from the folks I'm speaking to, and not just the old guys there, but the young guys too. Social media has given folks access to lots of information as well, but it's only because we have some place to go as a community and talk and chat and share with each other. So I advocate for it simply because it's been such a great source of personal satisfaction to me. I miss these guys when I don't see them at the shows. It's where I've learned the most, other than just every day trying to get the job done.
Yeah. I've heard that from a lot of tile contractors who have been very involved in the NTCA and the TCNA, CTF, things of this nature. Like Dave Govis, I was talking to him the other day, and he reemphasized that. He said it on his interview, and he reemphasized that the turning point or the wisest thing he did was get involved with the NTCA and talk about a man who had a very profitable business and sold it and had an exit of the business, and is able to live on several acres of beautiful, pristine, perfect Wisconsin land, and just has a great life, and is very, to this day, still involved in the industry because of how involved he was, and the fact that it's hard to exit this. But like you said, this was the number one decision for building the business the way I wanted to build it, and that was profitable, sustainable, and exitable. Right?
Yeah, I remember. I think it was St. Louis. There was a bunch of guys going downtown, and there was Dave Govis and a few guys sitting around talking about tile stuff. And nobody knew who I was. I just sat down. I figured, well, I was going to go with these guys and go out, but
yeah.
I saw this opportunity to sit down and just listen to these guys talk. It was valuable, and it kind of locked me into just, being part of the crew that was paying attention to the industry stuff rather than being there to party all the time. Like the guy that measured the success by by arrests. Right. I was part of that other crowd, not part of that crowd. So I was there to pay attention to these guys and try to learn what I could. So
yeah, and they're happy to talk to you. I mean, the first coverings I went to, I met John Bridge. I met a lot of people. I met a lot of good people, a lot of important people, and at first, I the first couple of events, the first couple times I saw them, and sometimes it is after the day is over, and you'll be at one of the the after parties from the sponsors or the manufacturers, and that's really when you get to dig deep into and pull people's brains, so to speak, pick their brains, right, pick their knowledge. And I remember being shy, and then the next day I was talking to John Bridge, and he said, don't be shy. We want to share. We want to tell you anything and everything you want to know. We want to tell you. So, and that's Chris's view, and Martin Brooks. I mean, all these, Brad Denny. I mean, all these people who are involved. You walk into the TCNA handbook meeting like I did in Nashville last year, and these guys are happy to see you, and you've got a question. that maybe's been on your mind, you're curious about something, you ask it, and they'll tell you just how it is.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% true. Don't be shy at all. And as a matter of fact, NTCA is a volunteer organization. We want people to be involved. And trust me, if you have the willingness and the aptitude to get yourself into that mindset where you're going to participate, there's absolutely a place for you. Let me say that all the time. And don't be shy. I know that the last thing that anybody wants it to be is, like the old boys club or whatever. That is absolutely not what we're looking for. And it might appear that way in some respects, but that's only because people are afraid to come talk to the old guys. But we're looking for the young folks to come in and take over, because
you really are. And like I said in an earlier episode, in the annual meeting of the NTCA, they said who's got it. They posed a question, and it was some changes they were thinking about considering making it within the NTCA, and they said, anybody have questions? Well, two guys, were sitting next to me, Jeremy Ward and Joseph Mattis, and they both raised their hand and had input. This was their first meeting. I don't even know if Jeremy was a member at the time. I know he is now. And he said, well, this is the way I see it. And they took notes, and they took note of that conversation. So if you have something to say, you go there and you say it. And like Chris is saying, they want you to say it. How, because you mentioned, the circle of peers that have been involved, and a lot of them are older. What kind of things are you guys discussing amongst yourselves about the industry? What are you concerned about? Like the user asked, or the Facebook attendee asked here. What are you concerned about inside the industry, or what excites you? Maybe one at a time.
Well, everybody's of course still reacting to COVID because it's here. It's not going anywhere. It's, at least for the foreseeable future, affecting the way we're doing business. How is that going to impact construction? Right? Is at least in my world, the commercial tile world, is this going to mean that office spaces shrink? Does this mean that they'll go back to the big open rooms are pretty much probably going to go away, right? Mm-hmm. How's it going to affect the tile installation? Is it an opportunity for the tile contractor? I think with porcelain panels, I think it's got to be an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Because it just makes sense that the tile is part of what they're looking for, sustainability, antimicrobials, and all the things that the tile offer. Mm-hmm. We have to sell it like an opportunity. So I worry about downsizing commercial office space. Apparently, right now, at least in the DC market, they've had the biggest reduction in average rent for residential space that they've ever recorded. So in the short term, it is concerning. But things always go in cycles. It always bounces back. People find a way to do what they do. Banks want to lend, builders want to build, tile guys want to tile. So we always find our way to get back into some sense of normalcy. So short-term effects of COVID, lots of folks that I know, they're not concerned about next year. They're concerned about maybe 2 years from now. Effects of the election, no matter what side you come down on, people fear change, and change is probably inevitable with each election cycle. I see good things for the industry just because there's so much opportunity by virtue of the types of materials that are now being manufactured and are extremely deeper U.S. production capability. I mean, it used to drive me crazy that we'd be installing 200,000 square feet of tile for a U.S. mall. Well, there's no reason to do that now. There's so much capacity in the United States. That's an opportunity. Really high quality tile manufacturers domestically available now. I think that's a great opportunity because, it narrows down a whole lot of issues, and air freight and customs and all the rest of that stuff you don't have to worry about. I don't see a downside to what's going on right now. I see opportunity because there's so much new going on with tile technology, setting material technology, production technology. It's a whole different product than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, a lot of, and this is nothing new. Like Chris says, change is always happening. Downturns happen. A lot of people will tell you, entrepreneurs, business owners, that every downturn, every time there's a trouble in the economy, there's hidden opportunities that you can uncover and that will, keep you afloat or maybe even excel. You might even have more profit during a downturn. And, it's kind of an interesting thing to say, but if so many business owners and entrepreneurs say it, there's a lot of truth to that. And if you dig around a little, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about and agree with this, listeners, that there will be opportunity, and it's your job as a business owner to find it and uncover it and stay afloat.
Luke, I can't see the chat. Have we responded to questions that have been asked or not?
Well, there hasn't been a lot of questions. I will say, go ahead, everybody. We've still got over 20 people listening here. Go ahead and ask your questions if you have questions. We had a question about concerns inside the industry, and you just answered that one. We had questions. We've answered several questions already. I don't think I missed a question.
I just saw Shannon. Hello, Shannon. Asked a question about selling your value, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Yeah.
But the only way to do that is to first have done your own homework. Right. You can't convey credibility without being knowledgeable. So that all goes back to training. You're not gonna walk into a conversation as the newest tile installer on the block and be able to convey your quality because you have no reputation to back it up. And again, like we talked about earlier, you're only going to make that sell once, right? If you can't back it up. So do your homework, know what you're doing, and the training is the first part of that. It's simple as read the back of the bag, right? So many people don't.
And we do have a question I would like to ask you, Chris, and this came not from a live member, but it actually came through my email yesterday. And so it couldn't have came at a better time because this isn't really my forte. I don't have a lot of experience, with, sitting on the TCNA book like yourself, Chris. I'm a baby in the industry here. And so it couldn't come at a perfect time. This kind of a deeper question or a concern that a tile contractor in Northeast South Dakota, I'll paraphrase and pretty much read his question. He said, I recently found the podcast and couldn't be more thrilled to find a community of people that are passionate about this art like myself. I'm writing in regards to my concerns with some of the newer system shower floors, the underlayments, the leveling systems. My concern with these products being summarized by saying I do not feel that they create a solid, unmovable surface enough to handle the amount of expanse and contraction that occurs due to their climate in South Dakota. Lots of freezing. I mean, it could swing 60 degrees in a day. I've seen it. I grew up in North Dakota. Have these issues been discussed? So I would like to say this guy must not be on social media because these issues are discussed a lot and brought up. But he says, to clarify, he mud floats all of his shower floors and he over a pan liner with a pre-float and a membrane. So it sounds like he's doing it exactly the way you should in the TCNA handbook for that specification. And he preps his floors with Tech 200 self-leveler over mesh, install floor heat inside the leveler. So he's describing some of the things he's doing, but his concern, he says, is that some of the products haven't been on the market a long time. They're sold as the correct way, professional method, and he has some disagreement with that, and he's looking forward to hearing my response. Well, my response doesn't matter. I'd like to hear from you, Chris.
Well, I think he's talking about a shower pan, so I'm not sure why he's concerned about expansion contraction, because presumably that's an interior installation. And it sounded like, it's good that he's pre-floating the floor, and it seems like he's got that part of it nailed, but a little bit all over the place in terms of the materials. So I would say, pick a horse and stay with that horse. Find a full service distributor or manufacturer of product that can check off all those boxes. One, because you'll have a system that's manufactured to work with all of the other components, and B, if you need help, consideration, or a little bit of support down the road, you're going to have a relationship with the manufacturer of that product that's going to be invested in helping get you on track. I mean, they are there to develop you as a high quality installer of their product. That's their bread and butter. And most importantly, you become important to them, and they're going to share with you, they're going to make you a priority. So everything that you did in individual steps, I get it. The leveler over the mesh, I don't understand the uncoupling reference, but again, you're kind of all over the place. So find a manufacturer of a single product and go from the ground up and use that manufacturer's product and all the components as they're manufactured to interrelate to each other. Yeah. Does that address the answer, I think?
I think it does, and I'll add, my 2 cents for what they're worth. When we question things, like Chris said, you don't know what you don't know. And so, for instance, at the onset of this episode, I said that Laticrete invented thinset. And then they got a lot of pushback when they invented thinset because everything up until that point had been mud set. But somebody had been keeping an eye on building trends, and they noticed that the direction the structures of the buildings were going, and they said, well, and they noticed as well as some of the ceramic, the way it was fired and things needed, to be, you needed the latex in there, right? Laticrete, latex and concrete. And so what ended up happening is when they built the World Trade Centers, they wanted to build the tallest buildings in the world. And so they had to cut down on weight. And because, like I said, innovation, I mean, it's gonna keep happening. People are gonna keep innovating, building newer, larger, different lightweight structures. And so Laticrete came through and got the whole contract because they were the ones that were using this product and had, invented this product that, enabled the World Trade Centers to be built and to be the tallest buildings in the world. So what I would like to say is you have to, if something bothers you because you don't understand it, you have to go to the horse's mouth, like Chris is telling you here, and say, why do your products work? And then you have the choice, just like Chris said, you have a choice to join an organization or not. You have a choice. Well, either you can say, well, I know in my area that my products work and I'm comfortable with them, but at least now I understand why they work. And so that's really the only answer you can give is, educate yourself, right?
I've heard that story about the World Trade Center, and of course I don't remember the specifics, but it had to do with being able to remove the thick set over 102 stories and 2 towers saved a tremendous amount of weight,
right? Which
in turn saved them needing a tremendous amount of steel. Now this is, in retrospect, it's just a whole sad association, but it was an innovation at the time that was pretty legendary.
Right.
And moving to the dry set, thin set methods is really changed the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't understand it always at first, but when we go to, and he says he uses a tech, company. And I know when I was in North Dakota, Minnesota, I used tech. That's what's predominant out there. One of the companies. And so go to, know your rep, find out who your rep is. And what I always tell guys, and I keep saying it because I keep finding people who don't realize this, the company will send their representative out to your job on their dime to ensure that you're doing it the way they want you to be doing it. And they'll also educate you, and they'll probably bring you a free hat, coffee mug, or t-shirt along the way, and some pencils, right? And so it's a win-win-win. I mean, you get some help, you get some education, and then you make the choice. Well, am I gonna keep doing it this way because and maybe you're doing it and there's nothing wrong. There's multiple methods that are approved and in the TCNA handbook, and you make your choice. So educate yourself, guys, and call your reps, get them on your job sites. It's a good time. And so any last words, Chris? We've been going about an hour and 10. I want to respect your time here.
Well, no, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, and hopefully we've been able to connect with somebody out there, and maybe by the time this gets on YouTube and gets passed around a little bit, it'll engage somebody in a new way. I hope that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did we check off all the boxes?
Yeah, we've checked off. We got through a lot of good topics here. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know it's a busy time. We've got Total Solutions Plus. I know you're active in that and very active in the industry. Here we have a comment. Thinset expanded the market. Pre-thinset tile sales were about 250,000 square feet. And then in 20 years, they went up to 25 million. I don't know. I don't have any way to verify that, but.
That's an incredible expansion though, right? In 2 decades time.
Yeah. I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, I can't even do the math in my head, but from $250,000 to 25 million.
Yeah. I refrained from doing that math out loud as well, but yeah, that's a pretty incredible expansion.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, Kevin Ford. Appreciate it. Waterline Tile and Design from Morro Bay, California. Shannon, thanks for being here. We appreciate your input. Everybody who commented, we appreciate it. This guy says he could do the math. So better than me. It shouldn't be that hard. It's 25,000. So I don't know if it's 10X. I don't know. All right, Chris. Well, once again, I appreciate it.
See you.
You have a good day. Enjoy your weekend.
I'll let you log out.
All right, tile friends. Well, that was a great interview with Chris. I really appreciate him taking his time to share his knowledge, his experience with us. And I want to thank all of you. We had 25 of you the whole time. We had 35, and I know some of you came and went. If you're catching snippets of this, maybe you came in halftime. You can listen to this in the podcast on a podcast player in your cell phone, or on YouTube if you like watching it and viewing it. So on any podcast player, Spotify, iTunes, etc., on your cell phone as well as YouTube. And again, thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate your support. I appreciate all the patrons who support me with monthly donations. I truly do. Together, we're building up the industry. We're building up the installer. We're helping contractors everywhere. So until next week, enjoy your weekend and enjoy your families and stay profitable out there, tile friends. Take care.